The first warning humanity received was not a declaration of war. It was an engineering report. At 4:17 UTC, the automated survey station orbiting Neptune detected a fleet emerging from faster-than-light transit at the edge of the solar system. The report was transmitted to Earth. The data was checked, then checked again, because the numbers made no sense. The vessels were enormous. Thousands of them. Warships, transports, supply carriers, manufacturing vessels, an invasion fleet. The largest concentration of military force ever observed. Within hours, every major government on Earth had access to the same conclusion. Humanity was about to experience first contact, and the visitors were not coming peacefully. The species called themselves the Thalren. Their civilization originated on a world named Valeris. Valeris possessed roughly 1/3 of Earth's gravity. For over 8,000 years, the Thalren had evolved and expanded under those conditions. Their cities reached impossible heights. Their bodies became tall and slender. Their architecture favored graceful arches and towering structures that would have collapsed under heavier gravity. Everything about them reflected their environment. Even their military doctrine. Especially their military doctrine. Grand Marshal Vitor stood before the assembled invasion command aboard the flagship Eternal Ascension. The Thalren commander was nearly 3 meters tall. His limbs were thin, elegant, almost delicate by human standards. Silver ceremonial armor covered his frame. Behind him, a hologram of Earth rotated slowly. A blue world. A primitive world. A world scheduled for conquest. Our intelligence confirms minimal orbital defenses. The officers nodded. Primitive atmospheric aviation. More nods. Fragmented governments. Satisfied murmurs. Limited space capability. Several commanders smiled. Vitor spread his arms dramatically. This campaign will conclude within 6 planetary cycles. Applause erupted throughout the command chamber. They were not stupid. Far from it. The Thalren possessed advanced physics, advanced medicine, advanced manufacturing, advanced propulsion. They had conquered 23 inhabited worlds. They simply possessed one weakness, a weakness so fundamental they had never considered it could matter. Gravity. The first signs of trouble appeared during approach. Several navigational officers reported unexpected concerns regarding planetary mass. The reports were dismissed. Earth was classified as a standard habitable world. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. Certainly nothing capable of resisting the greatest military machine in known space. The fleet entered orbit. Humanity watched. Billions of people watched. The largest live broadcast in history began. Every satellite, every telescope, every camera, focused upward, waiting. The first landing wave launched over North America. Thousands of armored dropships entered the atmosphere simultaneously. The sky filled with fire. Governments prepared emergency plans. Military forces mobilized. Missile batteries activated. Fighter squadrons launched. Humanity prepared for war. Then something strange happened. The dropships landed. Nothing emerged. Several minutes passed. Still nothing. Military analysts became confused. Political leaders became nervous. The invasion fleet remained silent. Finally, the first ramp lowered. A single Thalren soldier attempted to exit. He took one step, then another. Then gravity introduced itself. His legs folded instantly. The soldier hit the ground face first with enough force to crack his helmet visor. He did not get back up. Around the world, the exact same thing happened. Thousands of times. In Beijing, a Thalren officer collapsed before reaching the end of his landing ramp. In Germany, an entire squad fell into a tangled pile of armor and limbs. In Brazil, a platoon attempted formation marching. The formation lasted approximately 3 seconds. In Texas, one soldier simply looked downward, whispered something that translators later identified as, "Oh no," then tipped over. The problem rapidly escalated. Their combat armor weighed 3 times more than expected. Their weapons became difficult to lift. Their muscles could not compensate. Their cardiovascular system struggled. Many soldiers lost consciousness within minutes. Several suffered skeletal fractures. Others became unable to stand at all. Military observers initially believed the aliens were performing some bizarre ritual. Then doctors examined captured footage. Then physicists performed calculations. Then every military intelligence agency on Earth reached the same conclusion. The invaders had forgotten to account for gravity. The internet exploded. Within hours, memes spread faster than official government announcements. Videos of collapsing invaders accumulated billions of views. Someone added dramatic orchestral music. Someone else edited one falling soldier into a bowling tournament. A third creator synchronized invasion footage to slapstick comedy sound effects. Humanity had expected Independence Day. Instead, they got interstellar workplace safety violations. The Thalren did not find this amusing. Not even slightly. Grand Marshal Vator watched reports arriving from every landing zone. His invasion army was effectively immobile. Entire regiments were pinned by the weight of their own equipment. Several commanders required emergency medical intervention. One particularly unfortunate battalion suffered more injuries exiting transports than they had during all previous military campaigns combined. Vator stared silently at the casualty projections. Then at Earth, then back at the casualty projections, then at Earth again. Finally he asked, "How are the natives moving normally?" No one answered. 3 days later, the surviving invasion force was recovered. The fleet departed. Earth never fired a shot. Humanity celebrated. The Thalren did not. Because back on Valeris, the political leadership had already begun assigning blame. And unfortunately, blame was about to become far more dangerous than gravity. The return of the invasion fleet should have been a moment of reflection. It was not. When Grand Marshal Vator returned to Valeris, he expected outrage. He received something worse. Embarrassment. The entire galaxy had seen the recordings. Every major civilization, every government, every military academy, every news network, every comedy channel. The footage spread faster than official diplomatic reports. The most viewed clip in known galactic history featured a Thalren assault captain stepping off a dropship, confidently raising a plasma rifle, immediately collapsing under Earth's gravity, and accidentally activating the rifle into the sky while falling. The clip accumulated 23 trillion views. The title translated roughly into "Conqueror Meets Floor." The second most viewed clip was worse. It showed an entire elite battalion attempting synchronized deployment. All 80 soldiers collapsed simultaneously. Someone had added orchestral music. The third most viewed clip was known simply as "The Great Oops." No Thalren could watch it without experiencing profound emotional distress. The humiliation became legendary. Military academies began teaching Earth's gravity as a mandatory strategic lesson. Children reenacted invasion failures during school festivals. Comedians made fortunes. Several rival species declared unofficial holidays. The Thalren government was furious, not at themselves, at Earth, which made absolutely no sense, but politics rarely does. The High Council of Valeris convened. The chamber was packed. Military leaders demanded action. Industrial leaders demanded action. Nationalist politicians demanded action. News networks demanded action. The discussion lasted 17 hours. At the end of it, Supreme Executor Cassowary rose, the most powerful individual in Thalren civilization. Tall, silver-haired, utterly incapable of admitting mistakes. The first invasion failed due to environmental miscalculation. The room nodded. It did not fail due to human resistance. More nods. The error has been corrected. Thunderous applause. Grand Marshal Vator slowly rubbed his temples. He knew exactly where this was heading. "We will return." The applause became deafening. Vator considered retirement. Unfortunately, the galaxy heard about the plan. And that is when the galactic sovereignty became involved. The sovereignty represented over 600 spacefaring civilizations. Its primary purpose was preventing catastrophically stupid decisions. Unfortunately, its success rate was mixed. 3 weeks later, a diplomatic delegation arrived over Valeris. The lead representative was Ambassador Thalren of the Nesh Collective, a species famous for patience, wisdom, and spending centuries explaining obvious things to governments that refused to listen. Thalren addressed the High Council directly. You attempted to invade a high-gravity death world. Silence. You suffered catastrophic failure. Silence. You now wish to repeat the process. Silence. Thalren blinked slowly. Have I summarized the situation correctly? Yes. The ambassador sighed. Several aides began taking notes. This was apparently not the first time something like this had happened. You understand Earth is classified as a Class 9 death world? The council remained unimpressed. You understand that many sovereignty species avoid such worlds entirely? Still unimpressed. You understand your military has no practical experience operating under such conditions? Someone actually rolled their eyes. Thalren briefly considered requesting a transfer. Instead, she continued, We strongly advise against a second invasion. Supreme Executor Kelshar smiled. We have solved the gravity problem. That statement would later become famous. For all the wrong reasons. Because technically, they had. Over the next year, Valaris invested staggering resources into new military technology. The result became known as the Adaptive Gravitational Combat System. The suits worked. Mostly. Massive powered exoskeletons surrounded each soldier. Artificial muscle bundles amplified movement. Servo-assisted joints carried armor weight. Advanced support systems reduced physical strain. The soldiers could finally stand. Walk. Run. Fight. There was one small problem. The suits were designed by engineers. Engineers who had never visited Earth. The suits compensated for gravity by providing enormous mechanical assistance, which made the soldiers functional and painfully slow. A fully equipped Thalren infantryman could now move on Earth at approximately the speed of an elderly human carrying groceries. Military testing concluded this was acceptable. Several people argued otherwise. Those people were ignored. The second invasion was approved. Again, the galactic sovereignty begged them not to proceed. Again, the warnings were ignored. The question then became, where should they land? The Amazon was considered. It possessed dense jungle cover, limited visibility, high humidity, difficult terrain. Then a sovereignty briefing accidentally included a section titled, Things That Can Kill You in the Amazon. Document continued for 3,400 pages. Several invasion planners became concerned. One officer asked, Why are there fish on this list? The answer made things worse. Australia was then considered. A military analyst examined the threat database. The report contained entries involving venomous snakes, venomous spiders, venomous octopuses, venomous fish, venomous jellyfish, venomous insects, venomous lizards. The analyst frowned. Why is everything venomous? No one knew. Another officer noticed an additional section. The title read, Things That Are Not Venomous But Will Still Kill You. The report was somehow longer. The invasion committee stared at the document in silence. Then someone made a terrible decision. Australia is mostly empty. Heads nodded. Population centers are sparse. More nods. The terrain will reduce human response times. Even more nods. The wildlife cannot possibly be as dangerous as the reports claim. Unanimous approval. Far away, on Earth. No human being knew that statement had just been made, which was fortunate, because if Australians had heard it, they might have died laughing before the invasion even arrived. 1 year after the first failure, the Second Fleet entered the solar system. This time, they were ready. At least, they believed they were. Earth's gravity would not stop them. Unfortunately, Australia was waiting, and Australia had absolutely no interest in being conquered. The second invasion began much better than the first, which, admittedly, was a very low bar. The skies above Central Australia filled with descending dropships. Thousands of them. Massive armored carriers streaked through the atmosphere in organized formations. Unlike the first invasion, no soldiers collapsed immediately upon landing. No battalions folded into piles. No commanders face-planted down ramps. No one accidentally broke a leg while attempting to stand. By Thalren standards, this was already a historic victory. Across the fleet, officers congratulated themselves. The adaptive gravitational combat system was functioning exactly as designed. Powered exoskeletons absorbed the crushing weight of Earth's gravity. Artificial muscles compensated for the strain. Servo assemblies reinforced every movement. The soldiers could walk. Slowly, but they could walk. Grand Marshal Vator watched the deployment feeds from orbit. For the first time since Earth entered Thalren history, he felt cautiously optimistic. Establish landing zones. The order was transmitted. Thousands of troops advanced into the Australian wilderness. Within 30 minutes, problems began. Not military problems, not human resistance, not strategic failures. Wildlife problems. The first incident involved a snake. Specifically, an inland taipan. Private Kelvar encountered it while establishing a sensor relay. The creature was approximately 2 meters long. It appeared thin, quiet, unimpressive. Kelvar scanned it. The database identified it as a primitive local life form. Threat assessment. LOA. Kelvar ignored it. The snake ignored Kelvar. Everyone would have preferred if the story ended there. Unfortunately, Kelvar attempted to pick it up. The official military investigation later concluded that this was a mistake. The snake agreed. 3 minutes later, Kelvar was undergoing emergency medical treatment while every nearby Thalren officer demanded an explanation. The report was difficult to believe. You're saying the tiny rope attacked him? Yes, it nearly killed him. Yes. How? The medical officer stared. Venom. Silence filled the command tent. One officer raised a hand. Why would a rope contain venom? Nobody had an answer. Because they were still learning about Australia. And Australia was still warming up. The second incident occurred 6 hours later. A recon unit reported being surrounded by hostile armored organisms. Orbital scans confirmed multiple contacts. The soldiers prepared defensive positions. Weapons were raised. Threat assessments updated. The contacts approached. Then stopped. The recon team stared. The armored attackers stared back. Neither side moved. Eventually, one of the creatures wandered away. Then another. Then another. The threat turned out to be a group of wombats. Military intelligence was not proud of that report. Unfortunately, things became much worse the following day. Because that was when the spiders appeared. Technically, they had always been there. The Thalren simply noticed them. Corporal Sertel entered an abandoned storage building constructed decades earlier by mining crews. 5 seconds later, he exited the building. Running. As fast as his gravity suit would allow. Which unfortunately was not very fast. The corporal screamed continuously. Several officers assumed human forces had attacked. Emergency alerts spread across the landing zone. Security teams arrived. Weapons ready. Defensive perimeter established. The building was surrounded. The commander demanded an explanation. Sertel pointed toward the doorway. His voice trembled. There are monsters inside. Security teams entered. They emerged carrying photographs. The room fell silent. One photograph displayed a huntsman spider. The creature occupied most of a wall. By Australian standards, this was not especially noteworthy. By Thalren standards, it was a biological nightmare. One officer fainted. Another requested orbital bombardment. The request was denied, mostly because destroying Australia over a spider seemed politically excessive, although the proposal received more support than anyone expected. Then came the magpies. Human historians would later describe this phase as the point where the invasion became impossible to take seriously. The Thalren had no concept of territorial birds. Their homeworld lacked anything remotely comparable. So when the first patrol was repeatedly attacked by black and white winged creatures descending from the sky, confusion spread rapidly. Helmet cameras recorded the encounter. The footage became legendary. A squad of heavily armed alien soldiers stood in formation. Then a magpie swooped. One soldier screamed. Another ducked. A third accidentally fired a plasma cutter into a nearby supply vehicle. The bird escaped completely unharmed. Military analysts spent 14 hours studying the incident. The bird was never identified as the winner, but everyone knew, including the bird. Then came the cassowary. Technically, cassowaries do not live in the Australian outback. Unfortunately for the Thalren, a private wildlife reserve located near one of the landing zones did. The cassowary escaped during the invasion and immediately discovered alien soldiers. History was made shortly thereafter. Initial reports described the creature as an aggressive bipedal combat organism. This assessment was surprisingly accurate. The cassowary charged. Private Lorcas attempted to stand his ground. The cassowary disagreed. Helmet footage showed Lorcas disappearing beneath feathers, claws, panic, and extremely poor decision-making. The engagement lasted 11 seconds. The cassowary won. It wasn't even close. Back on Valeris, military academies would later classify the encounter as an avoidable tactical error. The cassowary classified it differently, as exercise. Yet despite all these incidents, the invasion continued. The Thalren still believed victory was possible. Human military forces had barely engaged them. No major battles had occurred. No armored divisions had arrived. No airstrikes had been launched. Surely things would improve. Then someone discovered the crocodiles, and everything changed. By the 6th day of the invasion, humanity still had not formally engaged the Thalren military. No tanks, no fighter strikes, no missile attacks, no infantry offensives. This fact became increasingly difficult for the Thalren High Command to explain. According to every military report, they had suffered 412 wildlife-related injuries, 97 environmental medical emergencies, 38 equipment losses, 1 destroyed command vehicle. The command vehicle incident was especially embarrassing. The official report read, "Cause of loss, crocodile." No further explanation was provided, mostly because nobody involved wanted to discuss it. The crocodile incident. It began when a reconnaissance company approached a river system. Drone scans detected movement in the water. The contacts appeared primitive, large, slow, biological. Threat assessment, LOA. By now, experienced Thalren officers had developed a deep distrust of the word LOA. Unfortunately, the recon commander ignored his instincts. A soldier approached the water's edge. Something exploded out of the river. Not metaphorically. Several witnesses later claimed the crocodile appeared to teleport. One moment it was underwater. The next it was attached to a combat engineer. The engineer screamed. The crocodile spun. The entire recon unit froze. Nobody knew what was happening. The crocodile understood perfectly. Several minutes later, the animal departed. The engineer required extensive medical treatment. The river was permanently added to military maps, under the label, "Do not go near the water." Unfortunately, Australia contains a great deal of water. The coastline disaster. High Command eventually concluded inland deployment was inefficient. A second wave would establish coastal positions. This decision immediately produced new problems, because Australia had not yet introduced them to the ocean. The first casualty occurred when a patrol discovered jellyfish. The creatures appeared harmless, floating, transparent, beautiful. Several soldiers actually photographed them. Then one touched one. Medical personnel spent the next 6 hours explaining the concept of neurotoxins. The box jellyfish was completely uninterested in their suffering. It had places to be. The funnel web briefing. 3 days later, a military intelligence officer delivered an emergency presentation. The briefing was titled, "Things in Australia You Should Not Touch." The document exceeded 6,000 pages. Halfway through the presentation, someone asked, "Why does every chapter end with the phrase, 'and this can also kill you'?" The intelligence officer stared blankly. "Because every chapter can also kill you." Nobody laughed, mostly because everyone suspected he was serious. He was. The emu situation. The next crisis involved emus. At first glance, the creatures appeared harmless, tall birds, fast, slightly ridiculous looking. The Thalren immediately underestimated them. Human observers attempted to intervene. Several Australians monitoring the invasion through drones began broadcasting warnings. The warnings were ignored. An hour later, a mechanized Thalren supply convoy attempted to cross a migration route. Thousands of emus appeared. Nobody knew where they came from, not even the emus. One officer ordered the birds dispersed. The birds declined. The convoy spent the next 4 hours trapped. The emus remained completely unbothered. Several vehicles ran out of power. The emus continued existing. Eventually, the convoy retreated. The emus considered this a satisfactory outcome. Humanity starts helping. Around day 12, something unexpected happened. Australians began feeling sorry for the invaders, not because they were enemies, but because they were clearly in over their heads. Social media exploded with discussions. Many people asked the same question. Has anyone told them about the redbacks yet? Others responded, don't. Volunteer groups appeared. Warning signs started appearing around alien landing zones. The signs were translated into Thalren. Examples included, do not touch the snakes. Do not touch the spiders. Do not touch the jellyfish. Do not touch the cute ones either. If it looks harmless, it is probably not harmless. Yes, the bird can hurt you. No, we are not joking. At first, the Thalren assumed these were psychological warfare operations. Then they verified every warning independently. The signs turned out to be accurate. Every single one. This realization was somehow worse. The meeting. By the third week, Grand Marshal Vator requested a direct meeting with Earth representatives. The meeting took place at a neutral military installation. For the first time since the invasion began, senior Thalren and human officials sat across from each other. Vator looked exhausted. Human representatives looked confused. The Grand Marshal activated a holographic display. Images appeared. Snakes, spiders, crocodiles, jellyfish, cassowaries, emus. Vator pointed at the images. Why? The human delegation exchanged looks. Finally, an Australian representative spoke. Which one? Vator's eye twitched. All of them. The Australian considered the question, then shrugged. Dunno. The room fell silent. The answer appeared genuine, which somehow made it more disturbing. The final straw. The invasion officially ended on day 29. Not because of combat. Not because of military defeat. Not because of diplomacy. Because a venomous spider was discovered inside the primary planetary command center. The spider itself was approximately the size of a human hand. The emergency response involved 3 battalions, 2 evacuation procedures, 4 armored vehicles, 1 orbital surveillance network. The spider escaped. No one knows where it went. Military morale collapsed shortly afterward. Grand Marshal Vator transmitted the final order. Terminate operations. Nobody argued. Several officers applauded. The withdrawal. The fleet departed Earth peacefully. This time there were no celebrations, no speeches, no promises of revenge, just relief. As the last transports lifted into orbit, thousands of Australians gathered to watch. Many waved. Several held signs. One read, "Sorry about the spiders." Another read, "We warned you about the birds." The most popular sign simply said, "Come back never." The Thalren considered this excellent advice. Yet the story was not over. Because when the fleet returned to Valeris, the galactic sovereignty was waiting. And for the first time in Thalren history, the entire galaxy wanted to know a single question. How exactly had an interstellar invasion force lost a war against wildlife? The galactic sovereignty did not usually hold emergency sessions over failed invasions. Wars happened. Border disputes happened. Political disasters happened. Entire governments occasionally exploded in spectacularly avoidable ways. The galaxy was large. Chaos was normal. What was not normal was an interstellar military power invading a pre-existing civilization twice, and losing both times without that civilization ever deploying its main military forces. That was new. 3 months after the withdrawal from Earth, Representatives from 612 sovereign civilizations gathered in the Sovereignty Assembly complex. The structure itself was enormous, a ring-shaped station nearly 3,000 kilometers in diameter, built to host species ranging from insectoid hive minds to methane-breathing giants. The official purpose of the session was review of the Earth incidents. Unofficially, everyone called it the Australia hearing. Attendance broke every previous record. News organizations arrived from across known space. Academic institutions requested observation rights. Military analysts filled entire viewing galleries. One enterprising media company sold commemorative merchandise. The Sovereignty immediately banned it. The company sold out before enforcement arrived. The testimony of Grand Marshal Vator. The first witness was Grand Marshal Vator. He looked older. Not physically. Thalren aging was slow, but emotionally, spiritually, existentially. The kind of tired that came from explaining to hundreds of civilizations how an invasion force had been psychologically defeated by birds. The questioning began. Grand Marshal, did humanity deploy armored divisions against your forces? No. Strategic bombardment? No. Planetary defense networks? No. Biological warfare? Vader paused. No. The investigator frowned. Then what caused the majority of casualties? Silence filled the chamber. Vader stared into the distance. For several seconds nobody spoke. Finally he answered. Australia? The chamber erupted into confused discussion. The investigator tried again. Please be more specific. Vader activated a hologram. The first image appeared. A funnel web spider. Gasps spread through portions of the audience. The second image appeared. An inland taipan. More gasps. The third image appeared. A cassowary. Several delegates visibly recoiled. One species immediately requested verification that the image was not artificially altered. It was not. That somehow made things worse. Humanity takes the stand. The next witness was Earth's representative, Ambassador Elena Ward, a former biologist, a choice that would prove unfortunate for everyone else. The questioning began simply enough. Ambassador Ward, are these organisms considered military assets? No. The chamber waited. Ward smiled politely. They are wildlife. Several delegates assumed the translator had malfunctioned. It had not. The investigator tried again. These creatures are naturally occurring? Yes. No genetic engineering? No. No military enhancement? No. No domestication? No. The investigator slowly lowered his notes. What do you mean, no? Ward blinked. They evolved. A long silence followed. Then another delegate spoke. Evolved. Into that? Yes. The chamber became noticeably uncomfortable. The evolution presentation. Unfortunately, Ambassador Ward was a scientist. Scientists love explaining things, particularly when nobody asks them to. A presentation began. The title appeared across the chamber. WHY Earth is Weird. The first slide appeared. Predation. The second slide appeared. Competition. The third slide appeared. Mass extinctions. The fourth slide appeared. More predation. The fifth slide appeared. Even more predation. A delegate raised a hand. Why is every slide trying to kill something? Ward looked genuinely confused. That's how ecosystems work. The chamber collectively decided they did not like Earth's ecosystems. The apex predator discussion. The presentation continued. A diagram of Earth's food chains appeared. Delegates studied it, then studied it again, then looked increasingly alarmed. Because Earth possessed an unusual number of apex predators, land predators, ocean predators, aerial predators, venomous predators, ambush predators, pack predators, solitary predators. Some ecosystems contained multiple apex predators competing with one another. This was apparently normal. For Earth. One delegate finally asked, "How did your species survive?" Ambassador Ward smiled. Several people immediately regretted asking. Humans became apex predators too. Silence. Through technology? Eventually. The smile widened. Before that, we simply chased things until they died. The chamber stared. Ward continued. We evolved endurance hunting. The translator repeated the statement. Nobody liked it any better the second time. The running incident. A chart appeared. It compared human stamina to other species. The data shocked the assembly. Humans could travel enormous distances, for long periods, in difficult environments, without stopping. A military analyst interrupted. You mean to say your ancestors hunted by following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion? Correct. That sounds inefficient. Ward nodded. It is. Then why do it? Because it worked. Several civilizations quietly updated their threat assessments. Earth's official classification. By the end of the hearings, the sovereignty reached a unanimous conclusion. Earth's previous classification was revoked. A new designation was created. The official announcement was transmitted galaxy-wide. Planetary classification update. Earth. Status. Extreme death world. Special notes. Unusually aggressive biosphere. Multiple apex predator ecosystems. High gravity. High pathogen diversity. Numerous venomous organisms. Dangerous environmental variability. Native dominant species exhibits persistent predator evolutionary history. Additional advisory. Do not invade. The vote passed unanimously, including the Thalren delegation. The final discovery. The inquiry should have ended there. Instead, a young researcher asked a final question. One innocent question. A question that would permanently change how the galaxy viewed humanity. Ambassador Ward. Yes? Of all the dangerous animals on Earth? Yes? Which one kills the most humans? The assembly leaned forward. Everyone expected something terrifying. Perhaps crocodiles. Perhaps sharks. Perhaps venomous snakes. Ward answered. Technically? Yes. Other humans. The chamber fell completely silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Several delegates checked the translator. It was working correctly. Ward smiled again. The silence somehow deepened. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers reached the same conclusion. The spiders were not the most dangerous thing on Earth. The spiders were merely practice. The Thalren never attempted a third invasion. The galactic sovereignty later established an official diplomatic guideline. When dealing with Earth, pursue trade, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. Under no circumstances should military conquest be considered a practical option. Australia later requested that the guidelines specifically mention cassowaries. The request was approved unanimously. For 10 years, the story of the Thalren invasion remained the most famous military disaster in galactic history. No one came close. Military academies studied it. Political scientists studied it. Biologists studied it. Comedians especially studied it. The phrase, "Don't pull a Thalren," entered common galactic language. Its meaning varied slightly by region, but generally translated as, "Conduct basic research before doing something catastrophically stupid." The Thalren hated this, particularly because it was excellent advice. A new generation. 10 years passed. The soldiers who had fought on Earth retired. Many entered civilian life. Others became instructors. Several became motivational speakers. One former invasion officer became surprisingly wealthy, publishing a memoir. The title translated roughly into, "Everything was trying to kill me." It sold exceptionally well, especially on Earth. Earth changes the galaxy. The aftermath of the invasions produced unexpected consequences. Trade agreements exploded. Tourism increased. Scientific cooperation flourished. Human engineers eagerly exchanged technology. Human biologists eagerly exchanged knowledge. Human athletes eagerly terrified everyone. Gravity training centers became fashionable. Earth fitness programs spread across known space. Many civilizations adopted modified human exercise techniques. Others attempted them. The difference was significant. One particularly ambitious alien diplomat attempted a human marathon. Medical intervention became necessary. The diplomat later described the experience as an extended argument with reality. The meeting. 10 years after the Australia incident, The Galactic Sovereignty convened another assembly. The topic seemed harmless: military cooperation, joint security initiatives, standard political discussions. Then the Thalren representative stood. The chamber became quiet. The representative was young, confident, educated, and unfortunately reminded many observers of politicians from the previous generation. He activated a holographic display. Earth appeared. A collective groan echoed throughout the chamber. The proposal. The representative cleared his throat. After extensive analysis, we believe previous Earth operations failed due to inadequate preparation. A Nesh delegate immediately buried her face in her hands. Several military analysts began laughing before he finished the sentence. The representative continued. We have developed improved adaptive systems. Groans intensified. Improved training programs. Someone in the audience whispered. Not again. Improved environmental simulations. A sovereignty moderator quietly requested additional headache medication. The representative smiled proudly. We therefore propose a limited military exercise on Earth. The chamber exploded. Humanity responds. Earth's representative this time was not a scientist. The sovereignty had learned from experience. Instead, humanity sent a retired Australian Army colonel named Jack Morrison. Colonel Morrison looked at the proposal, then looked at the Thalren representative, then looked back at the proposal. Finally he spoke. Where? The representative blinked. What? Where do you want to conduct the exercise? The Thalren brightened. Apparently he believed progress was being made. We have identified several suitable regions. A map appeared. The first highlighted location, Australia. The entire chamber began laughing. Not politely, not diplomatically. The kind of laughter that hurts. The representative looked confused. The second location appeared. Florida. The laughter somehow became louder. The third location appeared. Alaska. At this point, even the sovereignty moderators were struggling to maintain professionalism. Colonel Morrison's offer. When the laughter finally subsided, Colonel Morrison stood. I have a counter-proposal. The chamber became quiet. Instead of invading Earth, everyone listened carefully. Why don't you visit? The representative frowned. Visit? Tourism. The word spread through the translator network. Confusion followed. Morrison smiled. We'll show you around. The Thalren representative looked suspicious. Why? The colonel shrugged. Because it's safer. That answer received unanimous support. The tourist program. 6 months later, the first official Thalren tourism group arrived on Earth. They visited major cities, historical landmarks, scientific facilities, cultural centers. Everything went surprisingly well, for 3 days. Then someone requested wildlife tours. The ranger, the tour group was assigned a human guide. Senior wildlife ranger Emma Collins, a woman whose career consisted largely of walking toward things everyone else walked away from. The first stop was a protected wildlife reserve. The Thalren remained cautious. Past experience had left scars, psychological scars, and occasionally actual scars. Emma pointed toward a large reptile resting near a riverbank. That's a crocodile. The group immediately stepped backward. Emma nodded approvingly. Good. Progress. As the tour continued, something remarkable happened. The Thalren began learning, not just about Earth, about humans, about adaptation, about resilience, about preparation, the very lessons they should have learned before launching an invasion. A young Thalren tourist eventually asked a question. How do humans live here? Emma considered the question, then smiled. We grew up here. The answer sounded obvious, yet it explained everything. Humans were not extraordinary because Earth was dangerous. Humans were extraordinary because Earth was normal to them. The final lesson. On the final day of the tour, the group visited Australia. Several tourists became nervous, reasonably nervous. Emma pointed toward a warning sign. The sign read, Do not approach wildlife. The Thalren nodded seriously. 10 years earlier they would have ignored it. Now they respected it. Growth had occurred. As the group boarded their transport home, one tourist paused. He looked across the Australian landscape. The endless horizon, the harsh terrain, the strange animals, the dangerous beauty. Then he laughed. Not because it was funny, because he finally understood. Earth had never defeated the Thalren. Gravity had. Australia had. Wildlife had. Their own arrogance had. Humanity merely happened to live there. And somehow, that was even more intimidating. Final Galactic Advisory. The Galactic Sovereignty eventually updated its official Earth guidance document. The revised version contained only 3 rules. Rule 1. Do not invade Earth. Rule 2. If you visit Earth, listen to the locals. Rule 3. If an Australian tells you not to touch something, do not touch it. The document became the most successful safety advisory in galactic history. Unfortunately, not everyone read it. But that is a different story.